everybody, and welcome back to our Kaijumax Retrospective. Um, this is our forcefully made part two, because part one was cut off due to technical difficulties, but it's probably for the best, because this podcast would have been like 5 hours if there was no problems, because we still have yet to cover. Here I am again with Zander Cannon, creator of Kaijumax. Say hi, Zander.
Hey, everybody.
All right, perfect. And where we last left off, I'm pretty sure we were talking about kaiju designs in season 4, and I think we're gonna try to wrap that up and just get into Xander's um, you know what? I think we did cover kaiju designs like well enough in the first part. You think?
Yeah, I mean, sure. I always have stuff to say about it. It's fun to, it's fun to talk design and
It is
process.
fun to talk about it. Yeah. You know what? Just I'm gonna just let you anything you want to say about season 4 kaiju's. Just say it right now, Xander.
Okay.
Go off.
Yeah,
I'm-
go off. Yeah, get ready, everybody. This is some hot takes, but yeah, I mean, I think. Well, I mean, of course, I shoot myself in the foot a bunch of times by having things that are too complicated, like Zhong's armor and like large versions of the warden.
I think a lot of the mechas are pretty complicated.
Yeah. Well, and and it's like I don't know if I'm really built for like doing like machinery. Like I can do it, but it's just like, I just shove a bunch of boxes together and then I put like some seams on them and like sometimes, I cut off corners and it's like, yeah, that works well enough. Or I'll distract you with some like shiny lights on them.
Can I a quick question before you continue on? There seems to be, I noticed this because I was listening to another podcast like the previous day, and they were talking about how the artists who draw like kind of like mechas or giant robots, it's either an artist never wants to draw all that, right? So they actively avoid drawing like a mecha or a giant robot, or you're the type of artist who only draws that you only want to draw mechas.
Right. Like yeah. Well, I mean, when people really want to draw, I mean, I'm the person who avoids it for sure. Like, I don't even like drawing cars, but like, I think that if you can and enjoy drawing mechas, man, the world is your oyster because so many people want like Transformers commissions and whatever. Like, it's pretty great, I think. But yeah, I can't. I can do it well enough for the stories, for the purposes of the story, but it's like, but like if people want like a beautiful, shiny Optimus Prime, it's like, you better shop elsewhere.
I like, those, I mean, like, I love Optimus Prime as much as the next guy. And I like to think I am, like, a guy who wants to draw mechas. It's just that, I guess the ones I gravitate more are kind of like the simplistic designs, like your Gigantors, your Getter Robos, like a lot like the earlier stuff, because it's simple. And they're a lot more rounder, unlike Transformers or any other mechas that are just kind of like square. And also your art style is a little too you're a little too round, I guess, when you draw characters.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's and it's like I think there's a practical aspect to it too. Obviously, when you're drawing page after page after page of all these characters, you really are you really want them to be a couple simple shapes, and then it's nice when you're like, oh well, then I zoom in and then you can see that like, oh well, there's some detailing to this, these corners or whatever, and or some scratches and stuff like that, just to give it some scale. But I think like something where it's really designed to be super detailed, the Transformers, or like even worse, like the Michael Bay Transformers, which have 60 million pieces, and it's like, yeah, they look great, but like it's too much to draw.
It's too annoying.
Yeah, you could only do that in the age of like CGI. Nobody could ever draw that panel after panel. It would drive me nuts.
You gotta be like one of these like insane mangakas who are like drawing these things weekly and the crazy amount of detail they put on a lot of things.
Yeah, and drive their assistants to insanity, I mean,
Well, I guess
they probably hire a guy who just loves to do that stuff.
they
You
probably
know?
get like 5 guys in on that.
Yeah. Well, and I think
Right.
more and more you can model it out in a 3D program
Yeah.
and just use that. Like, there's no shame in doing that at all. Like, especially
Oh,
for robots and stuff.
I know people mostly do that a lot for like backgrounds, but before we divulge too into like our techniques, let's I just want to I guess I'll share my final thoughts of season 4, and then we'll go into your final thoughts. And with me, I really like this season. I really do think it was like a breath of not fresh air, but it was like it was the same but also kind of different, like because it's like once again like, oh, kaiju's in prison, right? But now it's like,
Yeah.
oh, women kaiju in prison and women
Yeah.
prison, right? And you don't just like leave. You could have easily just left it at that, but you go like very kind of like you go a lot more interesting ways with this. I also noticed this might be the season where like um I think the main focus in Kaijumax is like the drama, but this might be like the first season where like a part of the drama stems from like something kind of supernatural too. I mean, kaiju's are supernatural by default,
Yeah.
right? But
Yeah.
a lot of the things in the first season had kind of like a real world prison equivalent, and you were just like kaiju fighting it, right?
Yeah.
And I think in season 4, there's the moment where you kind of just go straight like sci-fi with like Goat's ability to like control people with like that black goo
Yeah.
that she sprays, right?
Right.
And I mean, I like that. I mean, that was like different. Like we haven't seen like kind of a straightforward. Oh, there's also like a little bit more of a like supernatural angle with like
Yeah.
this season.
I'm of mixed opinions about that. Sometimes I feel like, oh, I don't like it when I go sort of like into a straight sort of sci-fi fantasy realm where there isn't an equivalent. I mean, I think you can kind of say that there might be an equivalent, like, oh, it's it's basically just sort of like being a cult leader or something like that,
Right,
and being
right.
really charismatic or something. Um, because like I felt like her stuff at the end, I thought, kind of veered more than I would have necessarily wanted to into like science fiction that isn't sort of like grounded in, yeah, like you say, like it isn't just sort of like prison stuff that's
Right.
kaijufied, you know. And but I mean, I think it worked well enough. But like that sort of went against the book's ethos, where it's like,
Yeah,
basically it's prison. It has to, everything has to have a prison component,
it,
and
it's
everything has to
it's
have a kaiju component.
it's prison. It's a prison drama before it's like a kaiju story, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, because every time somebody, like when people are like, "Oh, I wish that just so and so would fight," and I'm like, "You don't get enough of that in every other monster movie. Like it's been done, and it's
Right.
been done better than I can do it. Why? Like read stuff by Matt Frank, read stuff by James Stocco, read like that. Those
Right.
guys nail the monsters fighting other monsters or monsters fighting Ultraman,
Yeah.
and it's like, I,
These books exist already. Yeah.
yeah,
And that's not your book, right?
right, and it's like you kind of have to say like I've carved out my little world, and that's where I'm gonna stay. And I mean, yeah, like I like monsters fighting monsters. Clearly, I couldn't have gotten into this if I didn't. But yeah, uh, I always have to. I feel like there's been a surprising amount of times that I've had to kind of. I mean, I'm making it sound more intense than it is, but like kind of draw out a boundary where it's just like, no, 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 that's not my thing. Like, for example, sometimes we'll talk to people about like making this into a TV show, and it's like
Yeah.
every once in a while people are like, well, what would you say about like maybe not having it be a direct translation of the comic, but like use other characters, maybe focus on the guards, maybe how the guards track down the monsters, and I'm like, that's just all kaiju media. Like
That that's like
that's everything.
that's like a bunch of other things. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not Kaijumax.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
Like
why would you want to do it if you're not going to do the one like the only thing that is
right.
unique about it?
Exactly. Yeah. It feels so. Yeah. Like what's the point then?
Yeah.
Right? Because the prison drama is like the highlight, really, and to remove that would be like idiotic.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of like removing like um the struggling teenage boy angle from like Spider-Man comics, you know.
Yeah. Well, and there are plenty of Spider-Man comics that do that too, where they're
Oh
just
yeah,
like,
don't
let's make Peter Parker look cool and awesome, and it's like, I don't want to
don't
read
get me
that
wrong,
comic.
like don't get me wrong. I know there's like a million comics where he does a million things and he does it pretty well and whatnot, you know. But if it makes you feel any better, I don't mind that like this like kind of plot line for this season was a little bit more like out there, a little bit more supernatural, a little bit more like sci-fi or whatnot, because you know it's kind of like different spices. You got like a diversity of things kind of going on, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Right, and since you it's like what, 6 seasons, like it's fine if one season is a little bit more like a little bit more out there, you know,
Yeah. I mean, yeah,
because
like it's all a matter of finding sort of the boundaries too, where it's like, okay, well, I did this over here. I'm going to do this now over here, and and like, yeah, you test on whether like, is this going to hit, or is this going to sort of land correctly, or is it going to be, or is it going to sort of seem out of pocket, in a way.
right, and I like to kind of like I guess go out of Kaijumax for a second. One of my like favorite like animes is a show called Hunter x Hunter. Have you seen Hunter x Hunter?
I
Zen.
haven't, but I know I'm aware of it. Yeah,
Oh, okay. Well, I recommend it to everybody because it's a lot different than like your kind of like Dragon Ball Z like shonen.
yeah,
It's because it takes it like in a very like different direction, and each kind of like arc is like different, you know, and you never really know how any arc is gonna end. And some stories some stories in the anime are very like, oh, young kid tries to become a better fighter and beats a
okay,
bad guy, right? But then a lot of the other stories are like not even that. They're like something completely different. Like it's still like young boy fighting other people, but it's it's maybe about a different thing. Maybe they get involved with like assassins. Maybe they get involved with like monsters. Maybe there's like political. There's like one arc where it's just like an election year in an anime world, and it's played like pretty straightforward,
wow,
right? And
wow,
it's so interesting. Like it doesn't even get boring. Like it's the most non boring election like I've ever seen. You know.
right,
So it's like fine to like kind of be different, and I think it kind of like it's a good way to show kind of like I guess the elasticity or like the how versatile your world is, you know,
yeah.
like it could be this, it could also be that, you know.
Yeah, I
Right.
agree, and I think that it's if you have enough time or if you have enough space in your story, it's always good to sort of say like, let's let's really look at the boundaries of this whole thing. Like let's look at these things from another angle. We don't have to
Mm-hmm.
just limit ourselves to this representative group from the first season. It's like, well, there's a lot of other characters and other types of characters that we can look at, and it's always kind of fun to sort of say like, oh, okay, well, here's like when in the fourth season, it's like, well, one of the only characters that we'd seen before is that Torgax, the daughter
Mm-hmm.
of Electrogor, but instead
Right.
of making her the protagonist, she's basically an antagonist for a lot of the thing. Like she's really,
Yeah.
she's really violent and she's really kind of unpleasant and she, all this sort of stuff. And I mean, there's sort of a like a redemption. I don't know. I mean, she doesn't have a lot to be redeemed for, but I mean, it's like there's sort of a redemption arc to it, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I mean, it's kind of fun to sort of say like, yeah, we don't have to structure every sort of ensemble cast the same way,
Right.
and that was the
Exactly.
nice thing about being able to almost do a soft restart of the series.
Mm-hmm.
Is that I could kind of just jump in and say, okay, now here's our ensemble, and it's completely different.
Right. A lesser writer would have easily just like done a repeat of Electrogore with like Torgax, in my
Right,
opinion. But that's not
right,
you. You're not a lesser writer.
right, right. There we go.
I think I have one more kind of like offbeat question about like season 4. You might not have an answer to this, but it's like something I kind of like noticed. I'm trying to think back about. I think it's the issue where Space Baby is like waiting to see if Zahn shows up during
Oh yeah.
and I yeah, okay, wait, okay, got it. It's a yep issue 2 in I don't know what page it's on, but
Oh yeah.
the page where they're like kind of waiting, um There's one panel where in the foreground there's like a yellow kaiju with kind of like a droopy snout, and
Okay.
it looks like she's talking to a human wearing like an apron.
Okay.
Um, I don't
Wow.
know if if you know this scene, but it's
I'm
during
fine.
the
I'm
part
finding it. Yeah. Oh yeah.
it's
Here
it's
it is.
during it's during the part where that one like red kaiju with the piercings is talking with like Geo Knight.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
I wanted to know what's the story like. I don't know if you had a story for like this kaiju, but what's going on? Like, why is she talking to like a little human in an
I
apron?
I don't. Boy, I don't know. I mean, that is funny. Like, and yeah, and it's like he's crying. Like,
Yeah, yeah, like
and I'm sure that the reason. Well, I'm sure that I thought of it like this. I was just putting things in the foreground to sort of give this panel some depth, and then I drew this character in, and she's facing to the right, and the edge of the panel's right there, and I was like, okay, well, if I have somebody just as large, well, that's not going to work because you won't be able to see them; they'll be outside the panel. So I got to put
mhm.
something small, and then I started drawing the person, and then I was like, all right, well, what's this person look like? I already did sort of the mad scientist thing with the Mechazon, and
Yeah.
so I don't. I honestly don't know. I think that I was just sort of like, oh yeah, he's like I don't know the shopkeeper that like
I
helped. I don't know helped her when she was a baby monster. I don't know. It
I was thinking like, oh, is she like some sort of like, is she made out of like dough or something, and this guy's like a baker that brought her to life or
see that would be
something?
a good one. That'd be a good one. I mean,
Yeah,
and
like it would fit. It seems like something that would happen in Kaiju
totally,
Max,
totally, yeah.
right?
Oh yeah, you think it's too dumb for Kaijumax? Like you think again, pal.
I mean, this is like, okay, what if like Shin Gojira and like Son of Godzilla just happened in the same Earth? You know, it's so
Yeah,
nothing could be too ridiculous, right?
right, right.
Okay,
Yeah, I
okay,
kind of
that
like the
was
little on the other side of the panel, the little like monster
robot.
talking to a robot. Yeah,
Yeah, that one. Okay, that one to me makes more sense
sure.
for
I
some
mean,
reason.
yeah,
Like, oh, yeah, like why wouldn't I like it's like you haven't seen that before that a kaiju is a friend with a robot or something,
yeah,
or that robot could be like her lawyer or something. It's there's like a lot of different angles, you know, with the robot, right? But it's just that this guy just looks so much like, he looks like a butcher or a baker. He
yeah.
looks like he works behind a counter,
Right,
like at
or
some grocery store, you
the
know.
time to make the donuts guy or something.
Yeah, he's a very normal looking guy. Like, I guess like compared to the kind of like humans that would come to a kaiju max, you know.
Yeah.
That's why I thought it was just so interesting, and it was so interesting that I wrote it down just to ask you about it.
Well, I mean, usually I gotta say, usually I do have a reason for things that I put in the background, but I mean, I do know that during this season, I had a huge like burnout during this season where I just was like
Mm-hmm.
really struggling to like to keep it going, and and that might have been part of it. Where I was like, yeah,
Yeah.
whatever,
No,
little
no,
guy in an apron.
I think that's funny. Okay, well, I think that's all for season 4, and we'll jump into season 5, which is
Okay.
this one is like I'm not being silly with you folks. This is like the Pikachu trial season, right? And Xander, what do you have to say for yourself about season 5?
I well, season 5 is actually one of my favorite seasons. I feel like I was kind of dialed in art wise. I was, I mean, it was a lot of. It was a pretty screwy season, like,
Yeah, yeah,
but
I would agree with that.
but I really and it's funny too because I mean, you know, I always wanted to do. I sort of set up the idea of quote the Dawn,
Right.
meaning Picadon, from the very
Yeah.
first issue. Like because I was like because I had originally had a different name in the panel where somebody mentions him, and then I was like, oh no, that's an actual Pokemon name. So I uh, I had to change it to something, and then I started thinking about like Picadon. The word Picadon is like Japanese onomatopoeia
Yeah.
for like the a boom, like a flash of light, pika, and then dawn is boom, and then specifically it's the onomatopoeia that they sort of assigned to the Hiroshima nuclear blast. So I thought that
Oh,
was
okay.
pretty dark and pretty grim. and so I thought, well, that'd be a great Pokemon, somebody that has a sort of like terrible power to them, and I wanted to make it basically like Pikachu, but like a Top of the Hut, you know.
Oh yeah.
Um,
I mean, I get that. It's like he's like a nuclear Pikachu.
yeah, yeah. And so, but I mean, the funny thing is, I didn't grow up with Pokemon. That didn't come to the States until I was in my late 20s. So,
Hmm.
um, but my son was into Pokemon when a couple of years ago, and so I learned how to play the card game, and so there's a lot of like little nods to the card game
Hmm.
and that kind of stuff, and so um, and I had always planned to have that opening, that sort of cold open, that where the children are fighting in the little
Oh
arena.
yeah. I thought that was I thought that was very. It's like, whoa, what's going on here?
I know, and it's like, oh, like there's a super high density of jokes too, where they're like, there's the child brand, like energy drink, but that looks like Monster brand, and I don't know, all these little kids' names with R.I.P. Like
Right.
I don't know, and then all the characters are kind of based around um,
Yeah, just different.
Pokemon trainers and stuff.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because I think isn't Satoshi is like what's Ash's name in the anime? Like
Yeah,
that's what his name is. Yeah, that. Yeah, and I got that like right away. Um, yeah, I grew up with Pokemon. I would say, and I think I think you do get a lot of stuff like very spot on. Although I think this season is like where you mostly kind of like, oh, every other word is like a Pokemon pun or something like
yeah.
pun related, right? I feel like you really like layered it on thick right here, which isn't like I don't that isn't a bad thing
Well, I
in
think
my.
I think it can get overwhelming, but I was like,
Mhm.
you want to hit it hard for like that scene, and then ease off the throttle a little bit.
Oh, right, I got you. I think it's I feel like to the layman, to the average person, if they were to see like Pokemon's introduced in this world, they'd be wondering like, well, what does that have to do with kaiju? Which is very funny because I think Pokemon and other media like that kind of owe its origins to like kaiju, you know. And I like that you kind of like, I don't know if this was
Oh,
on
sure, yeah,
purpose, but you kind of like acknowledge that when Pikachu first shows up, one of the first kaiju's he talks to is I forget the name of the guy, but this guy was like one of the little like kaiju's that would be basically like the prototype 2 Pokemon in Ultra
yeah,
7, you know?
yeah.
Yeah.
Metal
eh,
Birdo.
right, yeah.
You
Yeah,
can
like
tell I
meta.
was naming that one on the page there.
Oh yeah, true. That's fine. But yeah, like, and it's kind of like a visual way of like you kind of like acknowledging like, okay, this kind of like legacy of like little monsters and like containers does go back. You can connect it back to like
Yeah.
Ultraman and like stuff like that, you know.
Well, and it's like, and I try not to have. I mean, there's no like risk of being sued really if you
Oh
change
no,
it.
I think you're good. I think I think
No,
you're
I
far
know, but
beyond parody with
but
this
I
one.
think I never really want to have something be only a parody of one thing. Like
Hmm.
I like to sort of try to make it be about, like, oh, okay, there's a Pokemon stuff, and then to a lesser degree, there's like Digimon stuff, and lesser degree, there's Yokai Watch, and then these maquette monsters from Ultra Seven, and I think that like, and obviously it leans much more heavily on Pokemon and sort of the mechanics of Pokemon. But I always think it's kind of nice to sort of say like, well, I'm kind of making fun of a genre or
Yeah,
a
yeah.
subgenre probably.
I yeah, and I think you know what? I didn't even tell you my like overall kind of like what I thought about this season. The more I think about the season, the more like I like it, but it's not like one of my favorites, and I'm trying to like pinpoint like exactly why that's for me, you know, because if we could skip a little bit to like the finale.
Uh huh.
I noticed that this season is like I think the only season where the finale isn't involved with like a major character from the first season. I think
Uh
every
huh.
finale so far has gone back to a character from the first season, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Sure.
and this one like, well, like I'm talking about specifically like the final page usually is like a character from the season one has some sort of like not closure, but their kind of like arc kind of reaches like a point, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we don't really get that. This one is a little bit more kind of like the previous season. It's a little bit more kind of like self-contained, you
Yeah.
know. And I know you mentioned in the I think in one of the back of the like FAQs you mentioned, well, not FAQs, but in the back you mentioned something about how you always kind of like to do something different for like what was it, like usually the fourth episode
Yeah,
of
the
these
fourth one, yeah.
yeah, and you kind of did that with I'd say you kind of did that with like season 4, I guess, if you want to like stretch this beyond. But I feel like season 5 is a little bit more like different because it's not just straightforward. Okay, we're back to kaiju, we're back to the male prison. Like, no, we're also like going back and forth from the prison to kind of like the extended real world, and we get involved with like stuff like the trial that's going on,
Yeah.
and characters that were introduced in like season 3 are expanded upon a little bit more with I forget the name of the purple guy, with the older guy with like feathers,
Uh
the gay kaiju.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, like Shark, like Sharkmon, or
Yeah, Sharkmon.
yeah, Dokyunbi
Hmm.
is his Korean name, I guess. Um yeah, I mean, I think I always thought he was an interesting character, mainly just because he was a like an addict.
I think
Um
I like his like story the most out of this season.
mhm.
Hmm.
I think, I mean, I yeah, and it's like it's fun to like, not again, not fun, but like that I felt
Interesting,
like the more
complex.
stuff
Yeah.
I read about prisons and the more stuff I sort of went through, it was like addiction is such a huge part of it, because it's like people can smuggle all kinds of stuff in prison and people have nothing but time. So, like there's this constant thing of like, people filling their time with drugs, but then also like trying to get free of that. And I wanted to like, I didn't have a character who was really doing that so much.
Right, right.
And so I wanted to get to that. I wanted to have a character who struggled with it, and sort of touch on that a little bit.
No, I like that. I
But
think
then also, like,
that's like a very like
again, it's like,
interesting angle. Yeah.
yeah, and I wanted him to, and I wanted to have. Uh, I mean, I'd had some doomed romances before, but I wanted to sort of, I wanted to have a sort of a gay male relationship. There was a gay female relationship, and I liked, and and I wasn't like checking boxes or anything, but I kind of felt like I wanted to make sure that it was. I wanted to make sure that, I was sort of covering a lot of stuff that. Um,
Yeah. No, I got that. Like I'd say this in a world where like even I know like people like to like act extra mad saying like, oh, why is everything gay now? Like the majority of stuff is still pretty straight. Like
oh
the
yeah,
majority
like
of yeah,
you could
exactly. So
barely make a dent in it.
right, exactly. So I'm not worried about like, okay, I got a lesbian relationship, I got a gay relationship, I got like more of a relationship with like more non-gendered creatures. Like it's fine. Like it's
Yeah.
it's not the worst thing ever. I think you did a pretty good job with it.
Well, and it's not. I mean, I think too, like in something like this too, where it's not an action adventure stuff, where if you want to add a relationship of any kind, you kind of have to slow all the action down. It's like, well, this is a drama. I mean,
Right.
with some violence in it, but like this is a drama, so like introducing relationships doesn't sort of slow it down, and so I think it matters less what kind of relationships they are too.
Mhm. Mhm.
If people were going to be upset about one or the other. So
I get you. Um, and also I want to ask about why the unicorn. If anyone who's read this season, they know what I mean.
yeah, well, I mean, he's very sort of like definitively based on Puff the Magic Dragon. So, I mean, I'm of a
I'm,
certain age that like
I'm gonna
when
tell you this. That's like that was like my one blind spot while reading Kaijumax, was kind of like, okay, what is this? Who
yeah,
is this like unicorn and angle of? Because that
yeah,
wasn't that was like totally like. It's funny how you say like, okay, Pokemon wasn't my generation, and I'm like, okay, cool. Well, this unicorn guy isn't like my generation.
right. Well,
Yeah.
so Puff the Magic Dragon was a folk song by Peter, Paul, and Mary, but then also like there was like a bunch of animated like half-hour specials that were on TV when I was a kid. And so I mean they maybe started in the late 70s and went through to like the early 80s. And it was like, you know, Puff the Magic Dragon was just like this nice dragon that comes in and like helps these children who you know, like in one of them there's a girl who sort of is a pathological liar, like, you know, and he takes her to a different land to teach her a lesson. And there's a boy who like is nonverbal. I mean, it was actually kind of surprisingly like intense about the kid's problems. And so, but anyway, the idea is that his, you know, there's this monster, or you know, this dragon that's voiced by Burgess Meredith, and he's like, hey everybody, come on with me, and like and he'll like blow a smoke ring out, and they'll be like transported to this world. And it's like so, like, people claim all the time that it's not based on drugs, but it's like they're either lying or they're so naive that they, like, what are you talking about? So anyway, but
Yeah.
And it's like they're perfect, you know, they're a little weird, but they're perfectly nice sort of like children's media about like solving problems. But the implication that like, oh, some sort of smooth talking stranger comes by and you should just like go with him to some other location with you know, it's far from prying eyes. It's like that's bad advice. Like, I'll just put that on the record.
There's
bad
a lot
advice.
of, yeah, I'm not surprised this guy ended up in prison.
Yeah,
Right.
And
I mean,
so
it works. Yeah.
And so yeah, like I wanted to, and so anyway, I just wanted to do a little gag on that. And you know, and making him, and I'd been wanting to do something about prison tattoos, you know, because like that's sort of a common hustle in prisons, doing tattoos for people. And so I wanted to sort of, you know, not equate that with evil or anything, but I just wanted to have like a unicorn who could snap off his horn and like, you know, give you a tattoo with it.
Oh yeah, I mean, now thinking about it, I'm surprised you didn't like pick one of the more spikier kaijus to have like the ability to give tattoos. Imagine like a Gigan with two right. tattoo guns for arms, doing tattoos for people.
Oh, that would have been a great background gag. Oh, that's, well, next time I do this whole
Kaijumax 2.
Yeah. Oh boy.
But I think one of my, I'm not gonna spare you from criticism though. I think there's two like major like ongoing like plots in this story aside from like what's going on in the prison. There's couple of kaijus who are like about to enter death row, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think I like both. I like the ideas of this story, but I think what I was kind of lacking was like a more emotional connection to the kaijus. I would say Picadon's story has a little bit more of an emotional connection when there's like this kind of angle of like Pokemon's being oppressed, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And but I would say with like Hermes' story, like the hermit crab, I feel like I feel like I didn't get like a lot of like, I guess, Hermes' humanity, you know?
Yeah.
Or like because Hermes seemed to be more just like, this is just a hermit crab but bigger, right?
Yeah.
You get what I mean?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. I mean, who knows? Like, the idea was that he was...
From what we're shown, he just kind of makes sounds, it seems. Or he says words, but he only, like, says, like, one words at a time.
I mean, the idea was that he doesn't understand what's happening to him.
Oh, okay.
You know? And, I mean, yeah, like, he's basically just a but, I mean, you know, and, of course, I wanted to do something about, like, people who are condemned to death who are sort of, like, mentally incompetent to sort of understand... what they did wrong, or you know, any of that stuff. So
okay,
yeah, I mean, I think, and I think too, like in a way, you know, he's not really a main character. It's more like a, you know, a mechanism for us to sort of see what, you know, sort of the idea of this crusading lawyer to try to get them off, and then also how he comes into conflict with the cop who sort of, with the dirty cop who sort of you know, has to come to terms with what she's done. And
I mean, I liked all that too. It just, like, I mean, it's just when overall, like, I look through this season, like, I feel like it's very something about it just kind of doesn't, like, I don't know, like, grip me as much as the other seasons. You get me? And I'm not saying this is a bad season, because I think it's got a lot of good. It's, in my opinion, it's a lot like what season 3 was, where like a lot of like loose ends were like being tied up,
Mm-hmm.
I don't really get that vibe from this season, but it's more like this is like a couple steps like above that, you know.
Yeah.
You get me?
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because this one is one of my favorites because I really like the ending. I like the switcheroo on the where these alien guys are from, and
Mm-hmm.
you know, and like their little sort of
Society
yeah,
in
their little
the show.
filming, like their little recording studio
Yeah,
that's all made out of like bamboo
I
poles.
I
That's
I have a dumb question. Maybe I wasn't paying attention enough. Um, but why didn't the lawyer just say that, hey, there's humans inside that shell, or like there's like people
oh well, who knows?
that
I mean, I think that it was just sort of like I don't know, maybe they're squatting there or something.
that's what I was like wondering. Like, I mean, I'm not trying to poke holes. I'm not trying to be that guy. I'm not
I
trying
mean,
to
I
like.
think that they
I'm
were
not trying
trying to
to ding you right now. I'm not trying to like cinema sins ding you right
right.
now for it, but I
I
was
mean, I think that the idea was that like, well, if they told them there were humans in there, then they would be like, okay, humans, get out and go live somewhere else. We're going to kill this guy, and it's not just that he's their home; he's like this sort of deity to them,
right.
you know. And I mean, I think that despite the fact that there's like a little sort of twist, I think
Mm-hmm.
everything that the guy says is true, and he means it. Like it's,
Hmm.
like,
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. No, no. Okay, I get what you mean. Now I'm thinking like, okay, what if we legally like, what if there was a lawyer who was trying to convince a court, oh, actually, this isn't a kaiju. He's actually private property. So
oh well, that would be
we can't execute him.
yeah, that would be a very cynical take. That would
it,
very well fit into Kaijumax.
yeah, if there was like another trial about like maybe a giant plant monster, and they're trying to be like, well, like, is the plant monster sentient enough to be evil? It's more like walking like it's like a front yard that just so happens to have legs, maybe, right?
Right,
And that could have been an angle, but yeah, we'll save that for Kaiju Max 2, Kaiju Harder,
right.
right? But other than that, I'll tell you this: my favorite kaiju of season 5 would be Gonkel. I really like Gonkel. I really like how goofy he looks.
Oh,
Um,
he was really one of my favorites. Yeah, he was like
that
I
whole bit with like the whole Team Rocket bit was great too. By the way, I think the issue where they first jump in and do that little song and dance is like my favorite of this season.
yeah, I really like that too. I really thought that they were a lot of fun, and I really liked that. As much as I loved them, it's like, okay, then there's that moment that their like appeal is denied and they just get whooshed away into the sky, and it's like, oh man, like, because like part of me is like, oh, I like these characters, I want to keep them around, and I'm like, no, man, there's nothing better than going out on a high note.
True. Those are the one character. If there was like a couple extra seasons, those are the one characters I would want to come back.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, because I think it would have been a great bit to just bring them back, and then they fail again and they get shot out back into space again.
um, yeah, I think that was yeah. Anyway, I really like those characters. I really like their design. Like that was actually it's fun to design humans too, like and
Mm-hmm.
kind of say like, oh, like I almost none of my characters like dress in a certain way. Like even the people were mostly
That's
wearing
true.
art like uniforms and stuff.
Have you yeah, yeah, and that's something kind of like interesting about like kaiju movies is that they come from a specific era. A lot of them come from specific eras with specific like fashion senses, you know. If I think you seen like Red Baron, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I seen a couple episodes, and what I really like about it is that the main villain is very like stylish looking. Like he looks more a little bit more like a model than like
Okay.
this evil like guy who's trying to control robots. In my opinion, if you remember what he looks like, he's got kind of like a blonde hair, and he has like I think gloves and like a nice
Oh
suit.
yeah, yeah. I really liked the structure of that show too. I mean, it just as a different as a different take on it, where it's like that the support team really matters because they got to
Right.
find. Uh,
The the people involved controlling like
yeah,
the other robot, right?
right, right.
I'm
Well,
still slowly going through that series. But let's see what else. Let me look for my notes of season 5. I think yeah, I think I'd said the most. Oh, okay. Something I just kind of realized when you said that you weren't part of like the generation that grew up watching Pokemon. Um, to me that kind of like is very funny because like I'm thinking you weren't part of that generation who like grew up slightly more after Pokemon and then would discover the internet and would discover stuff like Flash cartoons and would find
Right.
like the cheapest joke on Flash cartoons to do would be to like pick a video game and make it like edgy, right?
Right.
And a
Right.
lot of the go tos was to make like Mario edgy, like oh, what if Mario was on drugs the whole time, right?
Yeah.
But another one was kind of like Pokemon but edgy, like oh, Pokemon is like dog fights, right?
Right. Right.
And
Right.
I'm pretty sure I don't think you're aware of that, right? You're not aware of like that like little niche of a genre that was happening
Oh, sure.
online.
I saw that stuff for sure.
Oh, okay.
Like, yeah.
Because I thought it'd be very funny if you weren't aware because you kind of basically did that, but with
Right.
another angle.
But like, yeah, like, but I thought I invented it. Like,
Right. That's what it felt like. Like, oh, you made like edgy Pokemon, but like it's like different. It's like it's like
right.
you
Right.
didn't know the rules about like these edgy Pokemon parodies
Right.
that would
That
be on
that all that
Newgrounds.
crap has already been done. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. But and not too many people go through the trial version if you not the go to court version, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
that
It
would,
takes a little bit more. It takes a little bit more research. It's
mhm,
like, obviously it's all sort of like papered over with like
right.
weird science fictiony stuff. But I wanted to make sure that it was sort of kind of
I mean, you want that kind of there's kind of this I guess groundedness when it comes to Kaijumax,
yeah.
where things are like still that like your kaiju like kind of wackiness, but it's kind of grounded. It's chained to something,
Yeah.
right? It's not
Yeah.
like oh like
I
Pikachu can't just escape the trial because he's like small and fast. He has to stay there, right?
Right. And I mean, and it's not, there's no equivalent to that in like a real world, uh, I don't know, like a real world drama like this.
Right.
You can't just start, you have to operate on drama rules rather than, science fiction rules.
Oh, okay. Again, another thing before we wrap up on season 5, I wanted to ask you about like how do you feel about Daniel's storyline because it kind of like concludes this issue.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
I mean, I love that. I mean, I love that final panel that he's in. I think that's
oh yeah, where
like,
they hug.
I was
I
really
thought that
happy with that.
yeah, I thought that was great. But like I don't know. I in the back of my like head, I feel like to me something was kind of missing from Daniel's story, but I can't pinpoint exactly what it was.
I don't know. I mean,
You
I
know,
think that there's a lot of stuff that people sort of felt like, oh, he should have confronted his parents or something like that. I don't know. I mean,
oh,
like I
that's
think that there's a
that's
lot
projecting. That's a lot of projecting. A lot of people want to confront their
of yeah,
parents,
right.
right? But yeah, go on.
I mean, and so yeah, I think that he didn't really sort of get a. I mean, in a way, I thought I was going to just conclude his story in season 3 where it's like, oh, he just gets squished and that's like the end of it, and not everybody gets a redemption
Oh yeah,
story. But then I like the idea that it's like, I came up with the idea very late in the game to bring, to sort of have him survive as a little goat, and then all this stuff. Like that wasn't part of the equation early on.
uh huh.
It just sort of came about because I was like, oh yeah,
I mean,
there's other things that I could do, and that would be kind of fun.
yeah. To me, it makes sense. Like and in retrospect, I really do like the scene where he like kind of crawls out of like what would be hell, I guess. Right.
Yeah.
I also noticed you the little devils that run around. You gave them the little like mustaches too. I thought that was like really funny. They're like, oh that's just it's just like little
Yeah.
like straightforward like little mustache trolling devils that run around.
Well, and I thought that, I mean, especially since every other sort of thing that I'd drawn that was related to hell was kind of sinister, like kind of like extremely sinister and bloody and like
If
blasphemous.
anyone,
I liked that the devils were all like little guys.
yeah, if anyone's like familiar with like I guess what you call it, your bibliography, your body of work,
Yeah, yeah,
right? You already did that, your hell book, right?
yeah. Right,
Yeah.
right, and had equally silly looking demons in that
Oh
one.
yeah, definitely. Ah, man, there was something about something that you said. I just like it piqued a question in me, but I just forgot. Oh, I remember. Okay, so yeah, you do a lot of like you do a lot of okay. What if they're not actually dead in this book? I noticed, because I think back in season two, no, in season three, no, it was season two, right? You show that like the character of Gupta who like shows up in the first season, and
Right.
then is implied to be like dead, and we even like see like his corpse. He like just comes back, and that one moment where like Doctor Zhang goes to the moon, and
Yeah,
sees like that like Gupta with the like cloak. Originally,
yeah,
I thought that like, oh, is that like something just wearing Gupta's skin and just like that lives on the moon now? Because that's what like
yeah.
to me that kind of made sense, a little bit more sense, because like, oh, the guy, I thought he was dead because his body was ripped apart, but no, that's actually still him, because later a moment in like it's very quick in this season where like your little Rita Repulsal stand-in
Yeah.
like gets murdered by like Gupta, and I for the longest time I thought like, oh wait, so I guess that really is Gupta then,
I
right?
mean,
And
I always referred to him like in like the annotations and stuff as like the thing that used to be Gupta. Like
oh
maybe it's
okay,
still him in there, maybe it's just his
oh
his
okay,
body, but
it yeah, that's like interesting. I was like, is what's like unless you don't want to tell me what's like the reason why like Gupta's like corpse is still walking around.
I I mean purely for the visuals of it. Like I
Mm,
wanted him to be there's a Ultraman character called Ultraman Belial
yeah.
that has that same sort of like more of a bestial sort of like sort of posture and like long sort of claws and stuff, and has a not a hammer, he has like a battle staff that's like
Mm-hmm.
a ridiculous weapon, and I just wanted to draw a version of him, and so I kind of like the idea that the bunny cartel on the moon would like resurrect him or something, uh, and I kind of meant to do more with that, but there was because it was in a different location, and because I don't know, there just wasn't a real hook for any of that for any of them to come back in the story. So I just kind of kept them in the background, and I kind of felt like, yeah, like again, it's like it's a fun little thing for you to notice,
Right, right.
or follow along. Go, oh yeah, there he is again.
Yeah,
And
it's one of those. Yeah, it is one of those moments that seem like, okay, we expanded the world a little bit, and it's not crazy for, especially in kaiju media, for a character to just come back, you know, to
yeah,
like resurrect in some weird or wacky way, right?
right,
Right,
yeah,
right.
it's all in bounds.
Hmm. Okay, so I think if I were to add this to the ranking, I think I would put this like above like where season three is right now,
Okay.
right? Once again, like all seasons of Kaijumax are good. It's just some are just better than others, right? I just want to specify that. Don't want to hurt no one's feelings, you know.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So with that, is there any like final thoughts you have about this season, or you want to just jump right into season six?
No, I mean, yeah. Again, it's like, oh, I liked the little story of the two kids that believed in uh
Sharkmon.
the Sharkmon. Yeah, in
Oh, that
Seoul in like
oh
the
that was
80s.
perfect. I think
I,
you really like making kids sad in these.
I know. Well, and it's like there's a 60s Korean movie called Yongari that I sort of you know I was sort of like playing with that because like the kid's name is Itchy, and he like there's a kid who is dressed like that in the movie, and
That
he's got like an itching powder that he like tricks adults with and stuff. So
Young Gary sounds so familiar. Oh, okay. Monster from the Deep. Yep, I seen this creature before.
yeah, and there have been a couple versions. They remade it in the late '90s, I think. Um,
Oh, Awesome. Was it the CGI version or
Yeah, I was,
okay?
but I haven't seen that one. I've only seen the one from the '60s.
That's that's epic. Oh yeah, I guess I'll mention. I mentioned this in the first part of this retrospect, but this is like the second instance of you like doing like imaginary kids, right? Um, with the scene where like Sharkmon is like so disgusted with the unicorn guy, he has to like strangle him,
Oh yeah,
and during that like confrontation, like he
oh
gets
yeah,
hit a couple times with like the horn, and he starts like hallucinating all the dead kids, right?
yeah,
And I'm like, damn, this a lot of like dead kids, a lot of imaginary dead kids love to show up in the
yeah.
series.
That's I mean, yeah. I'd hate to have people psychoanalyze me based on this
Oh,
comic.
I'm, I wouldn't do that to you. You're good with me. It's just no, I mean no, I'm asking for you to do more imaginary dead kids.
Oh, okay, all right,
Once
good. Well, I
Kaiju
probably will.
Kaijumax 2, even more imaginary dead kids. Tagline
God,
right there.
yeah, there you go.
All right. Okay, so we're done with that. And let's you ready to jump into season 6?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, cool. See I'll tell you this. Season 6 is my second favorite season.
Oh, okay.
Right? I think it's a really good finale. I think once again you tie up loose ends. It's two things that you do. Oh, I'm gonna wait until that huge truck passes by. I don't know if you could hear it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's massive. But two things you do really well in season 6 is you wrap up like loose ends while also having like an overall like season premise, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember you even like back then. I think when I first met you at I think it was 2018 Comic Con. You mentioned that this is like where the season finale was going for with
Oh, okay.
the whole prisoners like being firemen angle, right?
Yeah.
But instead of a fire, you know, what would it be a fire like a wildfire in real life wouldn't mean much to a kaiju, but like an alien invasion that would be like their wildfire, you know?
Right. Well, and I feel like there's so many movies where basically people have decided, oh, Godzilla, everybody loves Godzilla, so let's have him be a good guy and
Right.
fight the evil aliens. And it's like, and I like too that would be, that some characters would be like, oh yeah, you sell out, or you're like trying to you dancing, you're
I
shucking
really
and jiving or whatever.
I really like the kaiju selling out angle. That was pretty
Yeah.
great. But I wasn't gonna say. Um, I also like that you throw in a little bit of like the military industrial complex angle in there too, right? And
Mm-hmm.
like the perpetration of the Forever War
Mm-hmm.
that we're I think we're still in. I can't remember.
Yeah.
Um, right, and but you do that with like Space Invaders, like constantly keep coming back, you know. And
Yeah.
and another thing is, I think this season also has my favorite issue, and you could probably guess which one's like my favorite issue. It's issue 4 of
Oh,
season
okay.
6 with the whole story with like with like one of my favorite characters like Go Go Space Baby,
Oh,
and
sure. Uh-huh.
like her relationship to her son, and this like weird like this kind of like you really just introduced this like very like kind of intricate sci-fi premise in like in a one-off issue of like Kaijumax, and it's not like you just brought this out of nowhere. Like I think a couple characters mentioned this throughout the series,
Yeah.
that this is a thing that happens in this kind of like Ultraman like suburban neighborhood that
Yeah.
that what was his name, Dion 7
Yeah.
grows up
There's,
in,
yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that. Where did that come from?
Well, my son was adopted, so so in a way, like I'm like my family's kind of like his this sort of this family that kind
Mm-hmm.
of says these. Well, I mean, there's a lot of sort of my son is Korean, so there's a lot of Korean adoptee families in the Twin Cities where I
Right.
live, and so it's like a lot of times when you're in those spaces, like he goes to like a Korean culture camp, and you run into a lot of these other families, and it's like there's a lot of sort of ugly talk about, you know, rescuing children, not that much, but like, or a lot of sort of low-key racist things that get said.
Yeah, yeah.
And I guess I wanted to comment on that without, you know, it's like I don't have an essay or a thesis statement
I
about it
mean, you're
really,
gonna
but I
like
just,
do it your own way, you know.
yeah. And then so I just wanted to sort of say like, here's a messed up situation that I don't really have an answer for, um, but I wanted to sort of get into his head and sort of say like, okay, here's this world where people are being racist against him in a weird way, and his friend calls him out for being racist because because he made some comment about uh,
About like kaiju's, yeah.
Go Space Baby,
Yeah, I saw that.
staring her eye beams at him, or whatever, and anyway, I just wanted to sort of navigate that space a little bit and just and say like, it's things aren't as simple as all that, like
Right.
as people like to make it out to be.
Yeah, I think that's I think like and that might like I'm not saying like oh because like you have too much of like because it's like I feel like a lot of like great like stories could come out of people who don't really put on their personal experiences, but like this is an example of like oh there's very much a personal experience in this, right?
Yeah.
And it shows, and I think it's like this might be like one of the few this is like one of the issues I like would straight up just call beautiful,
Hmm.
right? Like this is like oh this is a pretty good like chef's kiss of a really good season,
Yeah.
right? And I like yeah, and I was like just blown away, when I read this for the first time. I thought like oh this is like so like this is like I think the peak of like
Yeah.
emotional drama that like Kaijumax like can reach, and I think that's awesome, and I really love that. It's kind of like it's kind of like throws you like this reminder about like a lot of like I guess how to say, because there is like other like very like emotional like kind of peaks or like emotional stories that happen in Kaijumax. I think the other one would be with I keep forgetting his name, but the one police officer who has like the PTSD, and
Yeah.
the whole thing
Mm-hmm.
with like his wife and his like daughter, and like that whole scene is also I think one of those moments that I think are really beautiful, that you really like crafted out of this like world of giant monsters, right?
Yeah. And I think again, it's like I think that it's nice to have stories in here, and not all of them are like this, but like that where they're allowed to be a little bit messy, where they're not
Right,
like, oh yeah, there's a problem, and then they just solve it in a straightforward way. It's like, yeah, like it's tricky,
right.
and like all that stuff with him and his mother is tricky because how is
Uh,
she supposed to navigate it? He's supposed to navigate it, and
it's a very like I can only ever see this kind of story in like Kaijumax. Like you crafted all the like proper like threads leading up to this moment to create this like very beautiful story that can only ever come out of this series, in my opinion.
yeah, I mean, hopefully, I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, well, you have to make the only you have to make it the story that only you can tell, right? And
Right,
so,
exactly.
yeah.
Right, like sure, like there's a bunch of prison dramas, but how many prison dramas could give you this like kind of like weird time warping like a stray mother and son relationship, like and then there's also like a Mega Godzilla there too, right? Like you don't get you I don't think you could do that in anything other things. Maybe there is like a series that did this. I wouldn't be aware of it as of right now, but
Yeah, yeah,
no, I think it's like I think it's like really beautiful, and I also think like once again you pull another like actually that character isn't dead with the whole like with a Wolfie's like imaginary dead kid is actually not dead or
yeah,
imaginary. He's very much alive and an adult, right?
yeah.
I thought that was like really good. I thought that was a really good moment in I think issue 5 is when that happens, I think.
Yeah, I that was not originally part of the plan.
Mm-hmm.
The original plan was basically just, what happened in the first season.
Right.
Um, and so I liked the idea that like it started to occur to me that like, oh, there's a positive, there's something positive that could happen here, like without cheating,
Right.
that and that was one of the things that I really liked, is that like this kid is just awful.
Yeah.
He's the worst, meanest character in the whole comic. But like, well, what if I could, yeah, what if that's just in his head? I mean, I had already established that it was basically him torturing himself.
Right.
So it would be so I thought it would be kind of fun to sort of say like, oh yeah, he's he's still around. It wasn't even as bad as all that.
I'll tell you this. I'll like when that happens right before the final issue. It's cheesy. It's a little corny, but that's like fine. That's because what are kaiju films but cheesy and corny moments like this. Right?
Yeah.
Because that's all. This is ultimately like the big like kind of like hero moment where like the Nick Fury like revitalizing the Avengers to go out there and like face on Loki, who's about to destroy the city and whatnot, or like your shonen protagonist like getting that final like friendship energy to like face off the bigger bad. I mean, that's and not to say that like, oh yeah, that's what Kaijumax is. Like, no, you have a bunch of other like little like plot threads. I really do like the whole angle with Matsumoto, like that she was like groomed basically.
Yeah.
Right? And she sees this happening to this like younger generation, and you have your like Neon Genesis angle. I mean, I feel like you should have. I mean, you probably have your reasons why, but I feel like you should have. I feel like the grooming angle could have been introduced in like a previous seasons. Maybe it was mentioned. I can't recall. Because I feel like it was just.
Can you say that? Can you say that again? I missed it. It just cut out for a second.
Oh, the whole grooming angle, like the whole like thing with her like getting groomed. I feel like that could have a hint of that could have been mentioned in the earlier season. Maybe it was. I can't recall off the top of my head right now.
No, it wasn't. I don't even think I came up with it until basically the issue where it shows up.
Right.
In the 5th season, because, yeah, I mean, she had just sort of said in general that like, that the life is hard and you just deal with it.
Right.
And that was, and her being, I had sort of gotten her, done the back story of her getting into sort of law enforcement.
She gets like 2 sad backstories, I noticed.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I know. So yeah, and I mean, and she's not a, she's a pretty villainous villain kind of, like I kind of didn't want to, like, I don't want to justify what she does, but I thought like it would be.
Oh yeah, go on.
I mean, I just wanted to sort of like give some context for all that, and
I think it's like she's clearly like an agent of the state, right? But but like which so much like I wouldn't say faith and authority, but like it's kind of like to kind of like keep this to kind of like keep her going, she has to like justify a lot of like a lot of the horrible things like those with like authority, like law enforcement, like do just to keep like the powers that be in check, right? And then like does that mean that's what I really kind of like about why I can't really hate like the warden characters too much, because there's like because you see that kind of eating away at them, right? You see that like they're not like they're not these like bulletproof, like all invincible like space warriors. They are very much human, and that stuff like piles up on them. It starts to eat them from the inside, and you really see that with like Matsumoto, and like and how she gets like she does get kind of like redeemed like towards the end, where she like she's like old, she can't really do the things that needs to be done to kind of like prevent this from like keep on going. But she like kind of inspires the younger mech pilot to like basically make a huge den in these corporations that like make money off of like, you know, constant war, the forever war, right?
Yeah, yeah,
yeah. And I like that. I think that's cool. That goes hard.
yeah. I liked, and I like too that it's like, yeah, she didn't really get a redemption arc, but she gets a moment where she can do the right thing, that in a way that doesn't help her, you know, that it doesn't, she can just kind of, it's not even really self-sacrifice, but she just helps somebody out for her, for no reason.
Yeah, that's a lot of that Kaijumax like realism. Like it's not your it's not your like straightforward like these characters. The former villain gets a huge redemption arc. You're very much still grounded. They're still like kind of like ground under these like giant like monsters' feet, you know.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
And I think I'm trying to think. I'm looking through my notes yet again about like moments that I really like. In the final issue, I really like that like little, like tell me if this was on purpose. But the part where like the warden comes in and like swings like Wolfie back, swings like him straight into space. That's like a callback to the first issue, right?
Yeah.
When he,
I totally just traced that panel.
Yeah, and no, that's awesome. I love that. I love like little kind of like bookend moments like that where like, oh, that comes back, you know. But now it's like a good thing, you know. It's not that he's like torturing a prisoner, right? Like he's now like being support, you know.
Yeah. I really wanted to make it. There are a couple different callbacks to that issue, and I mean, you know, it's like I'm not trying to say that this is like part of the Western canon or anything. It's just, but I thought it was kind of fun to sort of have it kind of echo the beginning.
Oh
of
yeah,
the whole series.
I'm a huge sucker for like those little moments that kind of like bookend, you know, the from like the wider story. I also like where you go with like Grubzo. Like Grubzo kind of gets his moment too. You know, we finally see that supposed like evilness in his heart finally like come out. Right. I thought that was pretty great. And yeah, I'm still trying to think back to like other like moments that feel very there's just kind of like a lot of like I think you really do a good job of like just tying up everything. I can't think of any like plot line you left untangled or nothing like that. I think you really do just do a plus job just wrapping everything up.
Oh well, thanks. I hope so. I mean, that was my goal. Like I hate, you know, I feel like every project, it's so common for projects to sort of be left hanging.
Yeah.
You know, and I think it's like, it's so nice to be able to sort of say like, yeah, this is as long as I expected it to be, and you know, and now here it is.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. I think is there any other thoughts you wanted to share about season 6?
I mean, it was fun to bring back all the characters from Matsumoto's life in her little dream.
Oh yeah.
You know, like all the you know, the dumb kids and the ghost of Zugaigo, which I thought that was. It's like I would want to just do a comic about the ghost of Zugaigo. I think he'd be the best.
That would that Kaijumax 2, Kaiju Harder.
Yeah, that's right.
That's where you'll bring them back. You'll bring back even more dead characters.
Yeah.
No one's ever truly gone.
Yeah, no, I would never kill off anybody for you know, for all time.
Oh,
if
right.
I really wanted to use them again, they're the best.
Right. Bring back all the imaginary like dead children from season 5. They actually weren't dead. They were all sleeping.
Yeah, they're sleeping. Yeah.
They were just sleeping. They were just relaxing. All right, and I think yeah, if there's anything else you want to say about like season 6, now would be the time. But I mean, all I really have to say is it's a really good finale. Really like I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna tell you this: when this book was coming out monthly, I was very underwhelmed by the ending, but
Uh-huh.
on the reread, I was like, oh wait, actually this ending is 10 out of 10, and I'm like, it was just the monthly kind of like scheduling was kind of killing a lot of the momentum for me.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
the best way to read the story is just go from the beginning to the end, like just kind of like go straight forward like that. Like sure, you can take your breaks between seasons, but I think that's the best way to do it because there's so many plot threads and so many things get wrapped up at the end. You kind of have to still be in that like emotional stage to kind of like really appreciate it all, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's an interesting thing about like early on the series was coming out, pretty close to monthly, and because of that, I think it was getting a lot of attention from sort of mainstream,
Mm-hmm.
podcasts that would review like whatever comics are coming out this month, and there I feel like it was sort of it was kind of outside of of like what I would think of its usual ecosystem of like indie comics, and so when the schedule kind of slowed down after time because I was completely burned out, uh, I felt like it really dropped off the radar of a lot of those sort of mainstream,
Mm-hmm.
outlets because they were just like, they were just like anybody. They're like, I don't remember what happened last time, so I'm not really excited to review it again, even if they're so it is funny because it's like, oh man, it really does make a difference, a little difference. I mean, but I think it does make a difference when you sort of have the comic come out on a regular schedule and frequently, monthly. I think that really makes a difference to a lot of people. Unfortunately, I couldn't do it,
I mean,
and
it's
so I think that it became and so I think that by the end it was kind of a periodical in name only. Like it just it just was going to come out when it came out, and I hope that you have the other issues lying around so that you could catch yourself up on what the heck was going on.
right. I mean, yeah, we're only humans, Xander, and we can't. It's hard to keep up a lot of times. I mean, that's a big reason
Yeah,
why I wanted to make this retrospect to just kind of remind people, hey, this is finished.
yeah,
Like you need to like time to read Kaijumax. I'm starting to like re-recommend it to friends again, saying like this is the kaiju story you got to get into, you know.
yeah,
Um, because it's great. It's very meaty. If I felt like, like I felt fulfilled reading it. It didn't feel like it was never like empty promises. I think you fulfilled everything that you set out to accomplish with this series. The worst part is I'm sad to like see it kind of end. But
yeah. I know. I'd love to. I mean, I would love. It would be fun to continue if it weren't. I mean, I feel like I would have started to repeat myself a lot, in terms of like, oh, this gag and this mashup of this prison thing, and like I just feel like there's only, there's only so much you can do with it, and I think that even if I could come up with something new every time, people would kind of go. I just don't want people to like fade out on it. I
I
would rather them be like, oh, it went out on a high note. Good, let's.
okay, I'm gonna tell you. I'm just gonna give you the brief on this because I would like to elaborate with this on off record. Um, but I do think like I think the world of Kaijumax is like the perfect like breeding ground for like spin-offs, right? And
Okay.
I'm not saying like, oh, pick a character from Kaijumax and then like keep following their story. I'm not. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying there's like potential for like a bunch of other things. Like
Yeah.
sure we saw the outside world, but like there's still like a lot more like things we could see. Like and I think that's like a beautiful thing that you did is that you didn't just limit yourself to the world of just kaiju media. You go into like mythology. You go into like literature, just anything huge like kind of exists. And I
Yeah.
and I'm like a big sucker for when like these fantasy worlds kind of have like their red tape. They have their bureaucracy. They have their like politics.
Yeah.
Like so there has to be like the Department of Agriculture that and how do they handle a situation like a Gamera, right?
Right.
Like those things like very much intrigue me. It's like how in Shin Gojira like Ano figured out how to make like the sitting down on the table scenes be incredibly entertaining.
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
it's like stuff like that. I mean, I'll just tell you like the my quick little thing. I would love to see like a murder mystery take place in this universe, like with like a private detective. Like if there was like a private eye who also had like the Ultraman like gear, and he becomes kind of like this private eye for kaiju's, and there's someone out there murdering kaiju's, right? And it's like, how do you murder like a kaiju and get away with it? You have to be massive yourself, right? And then it kind of like leads them off a trail, and in my head I'm thinking like I think I know what would be like the perfect like kind of ending twist to like this mystery, but I don't want to say it here.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Right, I'll tell you. I'll tell you off like the record, but
All right, that'd be great.
yeah, but yeah. With that, is there overall, how are you feeling? How are you feeling, Xander? How did it feel to do this?
Yeah, I mean, it's it's like it changes all the time, because I mean it's all positive and all like, oh, I'm glad that sort of I did it. I'm glad that people are happy with the ending. I'm really happy that you said that like that the ending's better with having read it all together, because I felt like people's response to the end was, like some people were like, oh yeah, it's really good, but I kind of felt I felt a little muted, and I was like, all right, well, I mean, you don't get they're not all winners.
To all Kaijumax fans out there, just reread the whole thing like right now, because it's way better on the reread. Like you everything kind of just clicks better into place. It's kind of like you finally have all the puzzle pieces,
Yeah.
So we can enjoy the picture.
And I just got my season 6 trade paperback in the mail, like a proof, not even a proof, just like an advanced copy, and so like holding all 6 of them in my hand, and it's like, oh yeah, like it feels really satisfying that like, oh yeah, like that's like a full 3 inches of like of pages. Like that's pretty cool to have finished. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I mean, like I think it's a really nice thing to sort of have finished I mean, I think that anybody who finishes a full story in comics should get a parade, because I mean it's hard. It's hard to do it. It's hard to find the time. It's hard to get funded the whole way through. It's hard to get publishers to sort of like sign on and give you the leeway to do it. It's hard to it's hard to just stick the landing from a creative point of view. There's a lot of it's really can be a tricky process, and so that's the thing that I'm probably most happy about, that it's like, yeah, I really finished it.
Oh yeah.
Like a 6-book series, that's hard to do, and in a way that I don't sort of feel like, oh, I should come back to it. Yeah, I'll come back to it eventually. It's like I'll never say never, but I mean I basically feel like I said what I was going to say, and I'm happy with how it came out.
Awesome. Oh, I forgot to mention, really love the final page with Tarango coming back. Yeah, as like Mecha Tarango.
I feel like I think a lot of people like him fine, but he's my favorite character, and so I was just like, I really wanted him to, he was always useful as a character to sort of like cap off a scene, and so I thought he'd be a great character to sort of cap off the whole series.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And I thought that was a great like punchline too. Like,
yeah.
Oh, okay. He, he's the protector of the city, but basically he's protecting it from the United States, which I just like to sneak that in there.
Awesome.
Because that's an American aircraft carrier.
I thought that was awesome. I love that. Okay, and I think that's about it I gotta say about this whole series. Once again, thank you everyone for coming through. Thank you, Xander, for not just coming out, but for like making the series.
Oh yeah.
I'll just tell you, I think I'm a lifelong fan now. Like whatever you make, I don't care if it's like, I don't care how old your demographic you're going to be aiming for your next series or whatever, and I don't even know if you want to make another series. I know a lot of people like get, once they like dive heavy into a lot of like genre, they get just tired of that genre. When they're done with it, they're like, okay, now I'm just not interested in watching anything kaiju related, right?
But
I'll
take a break from it for sure.
Hmm.
I mean, I'll take a break from it. I'll send you some stuff that I'm working on just to sort of let you know what's going on. But yeah, like I mean, I'm always going to work in like weird genres, you know, basically kids genres,
Yeah.
because I think that that's fun, and I think that that kind of absurdity is what I like about comics. I think that,
Yeah.
comics do that really well, and I think that you can have a blending of styles and a blending of tones in a way that it's hard to do in other media,
I,
or it's hard for one person to do it in other media. And so yeah, like it's like, yeah, kaiju. I mean, definitely put kaiju on the back burner, but I think it's fun to think about, like, well, what are things that are equally silly, equally sort of over the top, equally colorful, that could be fun to do
yeah.
instead.
Oh, I also want to compliment you for like, I think being one of the first like kind of like, um, not based on like an existing property kaiju comics that was coming out. Now we see like, I know there's that one comic about like the heist comic with kaiju's,
Yeah,
and now
yeah.
there's
Kaiju Heist, I believe it's called.
yeah. Oh yeah, but and there's also that like brutal reinterpretation of Ultraman, the Ultra Mega comic. I don't know if you like
Oh
read
yeah,
that one.
hmm,
Yeah, that
I
one.
love that one. It's gorgeous.
Yeah, that one's awesome. And yeah, and I feel like, yeah, guys, these are the kind of comics you got to like jump into. You know, if you're a fan of kaiju, you gotta like really, and if you haven't read Kaijumax, you really like missing out. You know, I'm really gonna like try to push this harder on people. Like, guys, this comic is good. Please read it. Please, please stop complaining about mainstream comics and just read like actual good comics made by like smaller creators. Like, please, that's all I
Yeah,
want people
well,
to do.
yeah, that's all I've ever wanted people to do.
All right then. And okay, I think with that, thank you once again for coming on,
Oh
Xander.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
yeah, and I think I think this is the end of the retrospective.
All right, all
Okay.
right. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, thanks everybody.